Hi, and welcome to this video about activity-based costing. I'm Kyle Ashcraft, founder of Maxwell CPA Review, and I help students to pass their CPA exams. So in this video, we're going to talk about how you take all of your costs and you separate them into different cost pools. Then you find the appropriate cost driver, and that's how you allocate your costs. So I hope that it's helpful for you. And this video is part of a 2-hour video course all about cost accounting. So if you're interested in checking that out, you can go to the link below. And I hope you enjoy this video. So far in these sections, we've been talking about the traditional method of cost accounting, meaning the method that we have to use for our external reports, like our financial statements. So this is the method that follows GAAP. Traditional cost accounting means we have period costs and product costs, and we don't expense the product cost until we sell the items, and we expense the period cost regardless. And traditional cost accounting also affects how we allocate overhead. So if you remember, we choose one cost driver, like direct labor hours. Then we do our total estimated overhead cost divided by our total estimated cost driver. So then every time we have a direct labor hour, we allocate overhead. So like I mentioned, the traditional method is what we have to use for external reporting, meaning it is GAAP accounting. But just because it's required doesn't mean that it's always the most useful method. Sometimes it doesn't show us exactly how much our costs are for a product. So let me give you 2 examples of why traditional cost accounting may not give the best picture of our costs. For the first example, let's imagine that we're using machine hours as our cost driver. And then let's say that one of our products is highly customized, meaning that before we even use the machine, we have to set it up, we have to calibrate it, we have to test it. So we incur all these costs just setting up the machine. Yet if you think about it, we haven't even started using the machine yet. So since machine hours are our cost driver, but we haven't used machine hours, we can't allocate any overhead yet, even though we've had all these costs setting up the machine. So allocating overhead is one limitation of the traditional method of cost accounting. Also, with traditional cost accounting, everything is either a product cost or a period cost. So it's really black and white. But sometimes we need to add up both costs to figure out how much our product is really costing us, so it can be kind of limiting. So let's say that we have a customer complaint call center. So we're paying an entire floor of employees just to answer customer complaint calls about our products. This expense would be considered a period cost. So it doesn't even go into how much our product costs are. So now imagine that you're producing 2 different products. One is very well made, so customers love it, so they're never complaining about it. And then the second one is poorly made, customers hate it, and they're always calling about it. So think about all the costs that you're spending on the poor product because of all of the employees' wages that you're paying. So with traditional cost accounting, we're not allowed to report these customer service costs as product costs. So even though the second product is costing us much more, we're not allowed to report it that way. So now we've looked at 2 examples, the machine hours and then the customer call center, to show why maybe the traditional method of cost accounting is not always the most helpful. So we have to use it for external reporting, but is there a better way for internal reporting? And there is. It is called activity-based costing. So there are 2 major differences between activity-based costing and the traditional method of cost accounting, and then there are a few subtle differences. So here we're going to focus on the 2 major differences. So first, in activity-based costing, there's no distinction between product cost and period costs. So we just add up all the costs together, then decide how to spread them out. And second, since we don't have product costs, then we don't have to really allocate overhead. Instead, we're taking all of our costs and we're allocating all of our costs to our product. So how do we figure out how much our product actually costs with activity-based costing? There are 3 steps. So step 1 is you take your total costs and then allocate them into individual cost pools. So let me explain. There are a lot of activities that we're doing as a company. We are producing products, we are packing them, we are shipping them, we are advertising. There's a lot we're doing. So since we're doing so many activities, we need to estimate of our total cost how much we're spending on each activity. So if we spent 1 million total, we need to figure out of that 1 million how much we spent on each activity. For example, let's estimate that we spend $200,000 on setting up machines, $700,000 on producing and packaging the products, and then $100,000 on the customer complaint call center. Of course, a real company is going to have many more activities, but for the sake of this lesson, we're going to focus on these 3 activities. So as a reminder, step 1, you take your total cost and then you allocate it to your activities. So then step 2 is we choose a cost driver for each cost pool. So a cost driver is going to be the unit that we use to drive how much of that cost we allocate. So with activity-based costing, we can choose any cost driver that we want. So let's go into the 3 activities and choose a unique cost driver for each one of them. So for the first activity, machine setup, what would be the best cost driver for that? Well, maybe the quantity of machines that we actually set up. So that will be the cost driver. So then some of the products we make aren't going to require us to set up a machine, so they won't get allocated any of those costs. And then other products are going to require us to set up machines, so they will get allocated costs. And then what about our activity for producing and packaging products? Well, maybe the best cost driver would be the number of units that we make. So that would be the best cost driver. And then for the customer support call center, what's the best cost driver? Not the number of machines we set up, not the number of units we produce, but rather maybe the number of customer complaint calls that we receive. So for step 2, we've seen that we're going to allocate our machine setup cost by the number of machines we set up. We've seen that for our second expense, producing and packaging products, we'll use the number of units as a cost driver. And then for our third cost, the customer support call center, we're going to use the number of customer complaint calls that we receive as the cost driver. So now let's go to step 3. So then step 3 is you divide your cost pool by the cost driver. So if we spend $200,000 on setting up machines, and let's say we set up 20 machines, we divide the $200,000 by our cost driver, 20. So that means that each machine we set up is going to get allocated $10,000 of costs. And then we're spending $700,000 on producing and packaging products. So our cost driver was the number of units. So if we have 10,000 units, then that means that every unit that we produce, we're going to allocate $70 of those costs. And then we spend $100,000 on the customer complaint call center. So let's say that we get 5,000 calls. That means that for every call we get, we're going to allocate $20. So now we finished the 3 steps. First, we figured out how our costs got allocated into cost pools. Second, we figured out what the best cost driver would be. And then 3, we divided the cost by the number of cost driver to figure out the cost per cost driver. So then where do we go from here? Now we need to allocate these costs to the different products, because odds are we're not just making one product. So we want to look at all of our products and see how we're going to allocate these costs based on the cost drivers. So there you have it. I hope that you've learned something new in this video. And if you're preparing for the CPA exams and you want some free weekly content, I'm sending out a free weekly email with CPA tips and articles. So you can just sign up for that at the link below. Thanks for checking out this video.